curiosity, what's your view on Mossad versus CIA? The differences,
Mossad is differences. I'll just say this without trying to make a comparison. Mossad is very focused. For them, national security is an existential crisis. If they fail, we saw what happened on October 7th, a lot of people killed. 3,000, I think it was something like 3,000 Israelis were either killed or captured or wounded. It's an existential issue. And so Mossad, they don't mess around. They're very serious. They're very focused. They're not supermen, but I've worked with Mossad, and they're very sharp and very passionate and dedicated, as they should be.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, I guess on a global scale, it's always kind of the tried and true history of KGB versus CIA. Obviously, Soviet Union isn't around anymore. Who do you think our biggest competitors are now, or the ones that we have to keep the eyes on most constantly?
Certainly the Russians and the Chinese, to a lesser extent the Iranians and some of the lesser players, Syrians. But Russians and Chinese, I think, are the two challenges. A lot of people, young people, ask me how to get into the CIA, and I said, well, if you've got a hard language like either Chinese or Russian or Arabic or Farsi, those are all great, because you can take somebody like me out of Texas and you can teach me a certain amount of how to speak that language. But if you've already got that language, it's great. But I'd say the Russians and the Chinese are our two primary challenges, primary adversaries. In fact, the Russians refer to us as Glavny protivnik, the main adversary.
Mm-hmm. How do you think China differs in terms of their approach? And because I feel like that's not other than the weather balloon that was over the country, it's not in the topic of conversation as much.
China has vast resources, human resources, technological resources that they're willing to throw against the problem. I think they're probably even better at cyber than the Russians. They have huge resources, both the Ministry for State Security, MSS, and their People's Liberation Army intelligence units. They're very good. Man for man, woman for woman, are they as good as CIA? No, probably not, but they outnumber us by quite a bit. The Russians are a little bit more, they're great too. The Russian, the SVR, which is their foreign intelligence unit, the FSB, which is the internal equivalent to FBI, although they also have responsibility for the countries around Russia. And then the GRU, which is Russian military intelligence, they do a lot of sophisticated intelligence operations. In fact, I had a good friend of mine who was in Russian operations, and he had a great saying. He said, not only are they playing both sides of the board, we don't even see the board sometimes. He was being a little funny. And I describe it in my new novel as trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in the dark.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So let me ask, how do you think espionage has changed since your time in the CIA and especially now?
Excellent question. There's certainly much more in the way of technology, but will technology replace human intelligence? In my opinion, no. But for instance, when I came back from overseas in 1994 and went to work full-time at CIA headquarters, the internet was just in its infancy. Now, the internet is so common that my phone, everything else I can access. If I meet you and you tell me your name and your company, I'll do an internet research thing and see if you're legitimate or not. So the ability for someone such as myself to travel an alias and pose as an oil and gas commodities trader is circumscribed considerably if you can simply look Jim up on LinkedIn and see, or whatever name I've given you. And if I've given you a name and I'm not on LinkedIn, and I should be, or I don't have any internet presence, you're going to think this is phony. Something's wrong here. So things have changed. Other things that have changed is what we call ubiquitous technical surveillance, meaning cameras everywhere, meaning biometric readers, meaning facial recognition readers, things like that. So is this an insurmountable barrier? No. it's just as much of a challenge for our adversaries, the Russians and the Chinese, as it is for us. And so we have to be smarter and swifter. I know Mossad's key counterintelligence principle is swiftness. Get in, get out, get it done. And I think that's a good rule. Get it done quickly. But be aware of the technical challenges. Now, people have asked me about AI. In fact, my friend Shawnee Delaney, whom I mentioned earlier, she and I are writing an article for a journal, and the title of the article is Human Dead in the Age of AI, in the Age of Artificial Intelligence? And we're going to probably come to a conclusion that artificial intelligence does pose challenges, but it also can gather incredible amounts of targeting material on a target. If I had AI resources, I can vacuum up all the information everywhere about somebody and have it make some conclusions and at least point me in the right direction as to how I might make a recruitment approach. If I find out that you're heavy into gambling, that you're going through marital issues, that you may have some medical issues, things like that, all stress points, vulnerabilities, or that you're on your social media. Think of all the social media that you're on where you make some mention of the fact that you like to play lacrosse. Maybe you're a member of a lacrosse team, an amateur one now that you're out of college, but I want to get close to you, so I'm going to learn how to play lacrosse and maybe work, to get to know you. Or I find out that you play tennis or you do something and you got that on your social media, on Facebook or on LinkedIn. That gives me great target assessment. It's what we used to call an access agent. If I want to recruit Reed and I don't know Reed, but I know Paul, who's one of Reed's best friends, and I can recruit Paul to tell me all about Reed and what his stress points are, that's called an access agent. Nowadays, with social media, I don't need access agents typically. You're putting it out there yourself.